This video is going to be looking at making equivalent fractions. Now, equivalent, you might notice that word has that equi beginning, which reminds you of what? It reminds you of equal. And that's what equivalent means. It means equal. The valent part is actually a Latin word that means power. So of equal power, or of equal amounts, making fractions that are equal in value to one another. So if we take a look at something like this, we've got a half, and there's a graphic of it underneath, a half of something. How many fourths is that going to be? Well, I've got the same amount of stuff there. Let's say it was a pie, and I cut it in half over here, and this one I cut it in fourths. How much of the pie is going to be the same as 1/2? Well, you've got one, you've got two. Two of those fourths is going to be the same as a half. Now, we all know, looking at that makes a lot of sense. A half is the same as 2/4. What we might not have known is that means they are equivalent fractions. They are equal in value, equal in power. 1/2 is the same as 2/4. If someone got half of something and someone else got 2/4 of it, you'd both be getting the same amount. So how do we figure equivalent fractions? We don't want to have to draw it out every time. So if we had something like this, 3/5 equals how many 15ths? I don't want to have to draw that out. Well, one way to do it is this. You see what you would have multiplied the bottom by to get to where you want to be in terms of the denominator. So if we started out with 2 as the denominator and we wanted it to become 4, what are we going to have to multiply it by? 2 times something makes 4, and there's only one thing that will do that, and that would be 2, right? 2 times 2 makes 4. Now, in order to keep it balanced, in order to keep it equivalent, in order to keep it the same value, the same power, we have to multiply the top by the same thing. So you're going to have to multiply the top by 2 as well. Otherwise, you're going to change the amount of stuff. If you don't multiply the top and the bottom by the same number, and we'll talk a little bit about why in a second here, but just know that you have to multiply the top and the bottom by the same number in order to keep the same amount of stuff. If you multiply them by different numbers, you're going to change the amount of stuff. So down here, a half is the same as 2/4. It's the same amount of stuff. But if I multiplied these by different numbers, that would not be the same as that. It would not be equivalent. Okay? So if we look over here, again, using this rule of thumb, how do I get from 5 to 15? Well, I'm going to have to times by 3, right? So what do I times the top by? 3. It's got to be multiplied by the same. So 9/15 is the answer. 3/5 and 9/15 are the same amount of stuff. Again, down here, 9 into 45, well, 9 times 5 makes 45. So I'm going to have to multiply the top by 5 in order to keep it the same, or equivalent. 4 times 5 is 20. If I took a pie and I cut it into 9 pieces and I gave you 4 of them, that would be 4/9. If I took a pie and I cut it into 45 pieces and I gave you 20 of them, that would be the same amount of stuff as you got with the 4 out of 9 pieces, right? Equivalent. So why does that work? Why doesn't it, if you look at something like this, you're multiplying the top and the bottom by 2, well, why doesn't it get 2 times bigger, right? Because you're multiplying it by 2 on the top and the bottom, so why doesn't it get 2 times bigger? Well, there's several ways you can answer this, but probably the easiest way to understand is this. If I take a half and I multiply it by 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom, this is 2 over 2, right? That's 2 halves. Well, what's 2 halves? Well, we all know that 2 halves is 1 whole, right? Anytime you have the same number on the top and the bottom, let's say 2 halves, that's going to be a whole. What about 3/3? Well, that's going to be a whole. 4/4, again, it's 1 whole, etc. So if you have the same number on the top and the bottom, it's always a whole, 1 whole. And when you multiply something by 1, what happens to it? It stays the same. So we're really not multiplying by 2 here, and we're not multiplying by 3, and we're not multiplying by 5. We're really multiplying by 1 whole, a special kind of 1 whole, 3 over 3, 5 over 5, 2 over 2. And whenever you times something by 1, it stays the same. So that's going to be the same as a half, because a half times 1 is still a half. But if we use this special kind of 1, 2 over 2, it's going to be 2/4, and it's still going to be 1/2, or equal to a half. So that's how you make equivalent fractions. You have to multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. Now you can divide the top and the bottom by the same number. So let's say I've got 4/8, and I want to make it into an equivalent fraction. Sure, I could multiply it. I could make it 8/16 by multiplying the top and the bottom by 2. But what if I divide the top and the bottom by 2? Well, that makes it 2/4. And what if I divide that by 2 as well? Well, that makes it 1/2. And all of these, 1/2, 2/4, 4/8, they're all equal. They're all equivalent. So you divide the top and the bottom by the same number. That's called simplifying. We'll do a video on that here in a bit. But know that if you divide the top and the bottom by the same number, you're dividing by 1. And if you divide by 1, it stays the same. Exactly the same as if you multiply by 1.